In the days before it happened, the family kept finding things that told them someone had been in the house while they were out. A newspaper on the kitchen table that none of them had bought. Footprints in the snow, leading from the edge of the forest to the farmhouse door. Not leading away, just leading in. This is not a campfire story. This is the actual, documented, police-investigated case of the Hinterkaifeck murders. A farm in Bavaria, Germany. In the spring of 1922. It remains over a century later, completely unsolved. The Bavarian State Criminal Police reopened the case as recently as 2007. Using modern forensic techniques, they still could not close it. I have gone through the surviving case documentation, the accounts given by neighbors at the time, and the modern forensic review. Tonight I am going to walk you through exactly what the record shows, not the legend that has grown around it. The documented sequence of events that led 6 people to their deaths on an isolated farm that the killer or killers never appeared to leave. Part 1: The Gruber family and the warning signs. The Gruber family farm was called Hinterkaifeck. It sat alone, isolated from the nearest village of Gruber by roughly a kilometer of open farmland, surrounded on other sides by forest. No close neighbors. No passing road traffic. The kind of isolation that, in 1922 rural Bavaria, was simply normal farm life. The household consisted of Andreas Gruber, 63, his wife Cecilia, 72, their widowed daughter Victoria Gabriel, 35, and Victoria's 2 children, 7-year-old Cecilia and 2-year-old Joseph. There is a detail here that the historical record treats carefully, and so will I. Local rumor at the time held that Andreas Gruber was the biological father of Victoria's younger child, conceived through an incestuous relationship with his own daughter. This was never proven in any court proceeding. It was, however, a matter of local gossip, and reportedly a source of significant tension and threats directed at the family in the period before the murders, which investigators at the time considered a potential motive. In the weeks before the killings, the family began reporting a series of disturbances. Andreas Gruber told a neighbor that he had heard footsteps in the attic of the farmhouse on multiple occasions, when no one should have been up there. He found a newspaper in the house that none of the family recognized or had purchased. It was not a local paper that the household normally read. A set of house keys went missing and was never found. And most specifically documented of all, recorded by Andreas Gruber himself to more than one person in the village. Footprints were found in the snow on the family's property, leading from the edge of the forest directly to the farmhouse. The footprints did not lead back out again. Whoever made them had come to the house, and, as far as the tracks could show, had not left. Part 2: The Maid Who Fled. On the last day of March 1922, the family hired a new maid. Her name was Maria Baumgartner. She lasted 1 day. That same evening, her first night in the house, she reportedly heard footsteps in the attic space above her room. By the following morning, she told the family she believed the house was haunted, and she quit on the spot, refusing to spend a second night there. The Gruber family needed help on the farm. They hired a replacement. Her name was Maria Baumgartner, a coincidence of naming that appears in several surviving contemporaneous accounts. though some later summaries conflate the two women. So this detail should be treated with appropriate historical caution. What is not in dispute is that a new maid arrived on the last day of the family's life. On March 31, 1922, Andreas Gruber, his wife Cecilia, their daughter Victoria, Victoria's 7-year-old daughter, and the new maid were all still alive that evening. Victoria's 2-year-old son Joseph was also in the house. By the following day, not one of the 6 people on that farm was alive. Part 3. What was found? The bodies were not discovered immediately. The Gruber family had not been seen for several days. They had not appeared at church, unusual for them. Post had gone uncollected. Neighbors grew concerned. And on April 4, 1922, several villagers went to the farm to check on the household. What they found was preserved in the police investigation and later forensic reviews. In the barn, they found 4 bodies, arranged in a row beneath a blanket. Andreas Gruber, Cecilia Gruber, Victoria Gabriel, and her 7-year-old daughter. All 4 had died from blows to the head with a mattock, a farming tool with a pick on one side, and a flat blade on the other, used for breaking ground. The mattock itself was later found hidden in the barn, inside the farmhouse. The 2 remaining victims were found. The new maid killed in her bed, in the same manner as the others, and 2-year-old Joseph, also killed by blunt force trauma, found in his crib. The forensic assessment at the time, and confirmed by the 2007 reinvestigation, concluded that the murders had likely occurred in 2 separate stages, possibly over 2 consecutive nights, based on the pattern of the killings, and evidence that some of the victims had been lured or drawn to the barn individually, rather than attacked as a group. This detail matters because it suggests something that the isolated setting alone does not. It suggests whoever did this had time, enough time to kill some of the family in the barn, and then, potentially, to remain on the property before returning to the house to kill the remaining 2. When investigators searched the farmhouse further, they found evidence that whoever committed the murders had continued to live there afterward. Food had been prepared and eaten in the kitchen in the days following the killings. The family dog was found chained up, still alive. Smoke had reportedly been seen coming from the farmhouse chimney. On days after the family was already dead, someone had stayed. The Bavarian police investigation that followed was, by the standards of the time, extensive. Over 100 suspects were investigated. Over the following years, none was ever charged. The physical evidence was limited by the standards of the era. Notably, and to the lasting frustration of every investigator who has re-examined the case since, the local police at the time allowed sightseers and curious villagers to walk through the crime scene before it was properly secured, significantly compromising what physical evidence might have survived. In 2007, the Bavarian State Criminal Police reopened the case, using modern forensic methods, including facial reconstruction technology, applied to skulls preserved from the original investigation, in an attempt to generate new leads or identify the maid, whose full background had never been fully established. Despite this modern reinvestigation, the case remains formally unsolved. No suspect was ever charged. No confession was ever obtained. no weapon beyond the recovered mattock was ever definitively linked to a specific individual. Investigators and researchers have proposed several theories over the past century. A jealous rejected suitor of Victoria's, a local farmhand with a grievance. Even, more distantly, Andreas Gruber's own, a strange brother, who had emigrated, and whose fate was never fully accounted for. In some later re-examinations of family records, none of these theories has ever been substantiated with conclusive evidence. What remains is the documented sequence, the footprints leading in, the maid who fled after one night, the newspaper no one recognized, the murders themselves, carried out with a farm tool the killer did not even need to bring, and the days afterward, in which someone, for reasons that have never been explained, remained in that house, with 6 dead bodies, cooking meals, feeding the family dog, and lighting the fire. I want to be precise again about what is documented and what is speculation. The footprints in the snow, the missing newspaper, the attic noises, the maid who fled, the murders themselves, and the evidence that someone remained in the house afterward. All of this is documented in the original police investigation and confirmed, where forensically possible, by the 2007 reinvestigation. The identity of the killer is not documented because it was never established. That is the genuinely unsettling part of this case, more than any individual detail within it. Not that something inexplicable happened, but that something entirely explicable. A person, a motive, a weapon already on site, happened to 6 real people, in a real place, and more than 100 years of investigation by real detectives, using real forensic science, has never been able to tell us who. The Hinterkaifeck farmhouse was eventually demolished in 1923. A memorial cross stands near the site today. The case remains open, technically in German law, to this day, which means that somewhere, in a filing cabinet in Bavaria, there is still a case number, attached to 6 names, waiting for an answer that may never come. If you want more of exactly this, real documented history, real unresolved cases, told with the accuracy they deserve, subscribe. Because this is not the last file that was never closed.